Hello and happy Friday. Welcome to the Boilermaker Lounge. I am Sam Springer, as always, joined by Grant Flora. And today we are honored to have Sports Illustrated's Dustin Schutte with us. Gentlemen, how are we today?
Doing pretty good. It's good to wake up on a Friday morning and fresh off some big portal news for the Boilermakers these last couple of days. So looking forward to that.
Dustin, how are we? I know it's early.
I'm doing. Yeah, that's okay. I've had some coffee already, so we're good to go. We're good to go.
Well, a lot has happened. We were just talking off air Monday. Last week we're on the air, and a lot has happened. We had the announcement of Braden Smith officially returning for his senior year in West Lafayette. We will talk about that one, Dustin. I got to ask your opinion on a couple of things, and then also Omer Mayer, the Israeli prospect or college prospect, I guess, committed to the Boilermakers. And then shortly after that, a few hours later, Liam Murphy from North Florida commits to the Boilermakers. He's a sharpshooter. Meyer is an all-around, but he can shoot from distance. And then we all know what Braden Smith can do. So let's jump into this, gentlemen, because this has catapulted Purdue from the fourth most likely to all of a sudden they're the favorite to win the national championship according to Fan Duel. Dustin, my question about Braden Smith, was there ever, to me there wasn't. Now, it gave me a sigh of relief, but was there ever some real legitimacy behind Braden Smith being pulled away from Purdue?
I don't think so. When you listen to the way like Matt Painter talked, and he did an interview with the Field of 68, it sounded to me like he wanted Braden to be able to make that announcement himself. But I think he kind of knew. Now that doesn't mean that there wasn't like some finagling, like, hey, I'm worth a little bit more money or something to that extent. But I think I was more surprised that he did not declare for the NBA draft and get his evaluation and get some scouting back on that aspect. I think that may have been the bigger question mark. Like, what happens if he goes, I think he was a projected late second round, but what happens if he goes through, drills, scouting, combine, all that kind of stuff. And then, gets a first round draft grade. What happens then? I think that might've been the bigger concern. There was a lot of like internet rumors, obviously, and social media rumors that Kentucky was involved, and I never really played too much into that because 2 years ago I had heard Gonzaga was a major factor in trying to steal him away from Purdue. And I don't know. I think they actually had a Braden Smith on their roster, so I never knew if that was like legitimate or how that actually worked out. But so to me, I don't think there was really any legitimacy. But in today's college basketball world, I think it's understandable that fans would be like, well, there might be some heavy hitters out there, but I think if we've learned anything, and we can talk more about this later, but if we learned anything from these past basically week, I guess, is that Purdue is not broke when it comes to the NIL situation. They're in a pretty good spot.
Mm-hmm. Well, having talked to Braden multiple times, shortly after they secured the Final Four bid last year, I asked him about some things and about what people have said that he was a liability in many spots. He said, keep talking. I love that because it drives me to show them differently. And that fierce loyalty, Grant and I talked about this, is he wasn't pursued hotly as a recruit. And now that he's proving himself as a viable piece of a program, now all of a sudden people are, well, he could go. He's so loyal right now, I think, that he would be willing. I heard that there was like $4 million that a program was holding off in case Braden hit the portal. Yeah, he likes his money, but it's not. He's a legend right now in West Lafayette.
Yeah, I think that was a big factor in him coming back. I mean, he has a chance to be probably the greatest point guard in Purdue basketball history, one of the greatest players. Yeah, Big Ten history, like could be one of the best players in program history. Like there's a lot at stake there. And so I think that meant a lot to him. I think the fact that Matt Painter was willing to offer him a scholarship when not a lot of other people at the high major level were. So I think there's a lot of factors involved there. And I think that's why he ultimately made that decision to come back. Like I said, I don't know that there was ever really any smoke to that, but in today's world, we've seen guys enter the portal that you think are Sherlocks to stick around, and it's too early for me to come up with an example. I was going to throw AJ Storr out there, but that guy transfers like every year. So
he changes with the weather.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of players out there that we've seen who have entered the portal that you just kind of head scratching. And so I think that there was, if that did happen, I almost was. So somebody did ask me this, like, is there a chance he goes in the portal? And I thought to myself, like, I feel like he could go the Kofi Coburn route. If you remember a few years ago, Illinois, the center from Illinois, Kofi Coburn, ran into the transfer portal because one of Illinois' assistant coaches left for Kentucky, or maybe two of them left.
Yeah.
But he tested the draft waters, got like an NIL valuation or something, and then ultimately returned to Illinois. I could have seen something like that, but I never really, if you would have asked what's the percent likelihood that Braden Smith is going to return to Purdue, I would have put it about 75% because of all the things you just mentioned. I mean, and when you're also talking about if he was to transferring to a team that doesn't have that same chemistry that he would have had with Fletcher Lawyer, Trey Kaufman-Renn, even Jakari Harris and CJ Cox. Like, he knows the offense. He's got the keys, right? So
right.
I just think that there were a lot of reasons for him to return if the NBA wasn't the best option for him.
Yeah, and Purdue's going to be one of the best teams in the country next year. So if you talk about winning, like, his best chance to win is at Purdue next year. And I think that matters to a guy like Braden Smith for sure.
Well, and I think it's because he like you said, he's driving the car. He's got the keys to the car. So the fact that team is one of the better ones anyways, it's the wisest. What is bigger? Bringing a national championship to, let's throw it out there, Kentucky, let's say, or bringing a national championship to Purdue? Which one makes your legacy even better? And I Braden Smith is not dumb. He understands he's very loyal, but then also, which one's a bigger legacy on your name? Did you bring a national championship to Kentucky or Purdue? Okay, let's end the conversation.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on then to the two commits that Purdue got this week as well. Omer Mayer. So now we have an Oscar and we have a Meyer. We have now some great jokes to go along with our roster. This guy was, I know he was on the radar and mentioned a few times, but it heated up relatively quickly, and all of a sudden, boom, he was in West Lafayette. Kind of talk about what you've seen from him and what he's going to bring to the Boilermakers going forward now.
Yeah, I think this is going to be interesting because I think if you didn't have Braden Smith on your roster, you're like, this guy's going to come in and probably be your starting point guard.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and I've heard some people refer to him as basically Braden Smith with a little bit of size.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how his game. Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know how they're going to. And to me, my first thought was, again, I don't know how his game's going to translate to college. I think it's going to be just fine how it's going to work in Purdue's system. I think there's always, everybody wants, what you look like from tape and from like this Hoop League Summit and all this stuff to translate immediately. And sometimes there's just a transition period. There's a growth. So if he's not, an all Big Ten caliber player right out of the gate, I would say just be patient, take a few deep breaths. It'll be okay. What I think is going to be interesting about this kid is I think he'll probably play a little bit of both the 1 and the 2. And what I'm really intrigued by is we saw how good Braden Smith was for 40 minutes when he could go, right? And he was I don't remember what his season average was on minutes, but he was not I would put it probably around like the 36 to 37 minute per game mark. So even if you're able to sit Braden Smith because you feel comfortable with Meyer handling the ball, handling pressure, let's say Braden plays 32, 33 minutes, not only does that maybe help us, it may hurt his statistical line, but in terms of his productivity throughout the course of the season, because let's face it, guys, at one point in February, as good as he still was, I think that you could see like Braden looks tired out there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes he didn't have his legs, and some of that's just the fact that you're playing 31 or 36 games, 31 regular season games throughout the course of a season. And some of it is the fact that you were having to play 38 to 40 minutes in some of those games.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that provides some relief. And then I think if he's going to be off ball out there, maybe he gives Fletch a blow at times throughout the season. I think he's going to be a good guy who can spot up, shoot, and then also create some opportunities off the dribble. So I think he's a guy that can play probably. I mean, he would play starters minutes if they didn't have Braden and Fletcher. Right. But I think that this is a guy that can probably easily get you 15 to 20 minutes per game and give those two guys a blow throughout the course of a basketball game.
Braden Smith averaged 37 minutes a game.
Okay, I was close.
Yeah. Which is an insane stat because you're running the point. You're in charge of it all, and you're out there most of the game. I mean, don't get me wrong. You want that, but you also, like you said, you could see him getting tired at points. And now, is it possible that Mayer plays even some three? Because Cox was a starter in that at the three. Is it possible he runs through the 1 through 3 positions and gets his minutes?
I would think so, because I think that there's still some lineup options and some variabilities there where you could probably play small ball and throw Trey Kaufman run at the 5, depending on what you need. If you need a scoring boost defensively, I still don't like that. I'm going to guess Matt Painter's probably not going to like that defensively. But if you need something to kickstart and say, hey, we got to rattle off 8 to 10 points here, or we got to get our offense going, I could see a situation where it's like you're just putting defense in binds. Where basically it's like, okay, we got Braden at the 1, you got Fletch at the 2, you got Mayer at the 3, or you flip over, maybe you put Fletch at the 3, whatever the case might be.
Right.
Defensively, it's probably not a very good lineup, but I think he probably could be in that position. I would say that's probably going to be a rarity, though. That would just be my guess.
Yeah.
So you're saying you expect Mayer to come off the bench then and be a supplement for Braden and Fletch?
I think so. I think so. I don't know. He could. I just don't know that I see them going. Maybe he could overtake CJ. I don't know. It probably depends on what they're going to need. I know Matt Painter likes to have extra ball handlers on the court, but I think CJ Cox is a pretty good ball handler. And again, I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with Omer Mayer's game defensively. I think CJ is probably a better defensive player. Now, this could all change in June. Once he gets on campus and once we are able to start seeing these guys scrimmage and workouts, we might have a better understanding, obviously. But my hunch would be he's going to come off the bench because I think primarily he's going to come in for either Fletcher or Braden when they get that first. That would be my guess. I don't know, but there's just this is such a good problem Matt Painter has right now. Like he's just like trying to find minutes for guys that are outstanding basketball players.
Literally was getting ready to say that because but the nice thing about this is Meyer's coming in as a freshman, so he's got time to and as long and I'm sure Coach Painter said this to him. Coach Stevanovic said this to him. Look, you may not be a starter out of the gate. And put into his mind, look, you are a supplement right now, but you have plenty of opportunity for more minutes. Just keep working hard. And I think they're pretty straightforward, probably, with all of their recruits and all of their potential gets with this is where we see you. If this isn't what you want, maybe we're not the right place for you.
Yeah, there was an interview, and I can't validate this because I haven't seen the interview yet. But there was an interview that was speculated around that he was kind of like the perfect guy, whereas he said something along the lines of, I don't want somebody to come in and tell me I'm going to play 30 minutes per game. I want somebody to tell me I'm going to have to come in and compete basically to play 30 minutes per game. And I think that's such a Matt Painter type of player. Yeah. And I think that speaks to like, this kid doesn't want to just be handed stuff because he knows to get to the end. Like his ultimate goal is obviously going to be to get to the NBA, but he knows he can't just waltz in there to a bad program, not get any better, and then expect to be a great NBA player. So I think he's going to embrace that challenge, and maybe he does. Maybe he finds a way to where he works himself into the starting rotation. Maybe he puts himself above CJ Cox. Yeah, that puts Purdue in a really good spot, and we saw it last year too. Like, Jakari Harris started the season as one of the starters, and then Painter did some lineup changes. Ultimately, he came in off the bench, and I think Purdue was better with him coming off the bench. He seemed more comfortable in that role. Yeah. So I think that it sounds like Omer Mayer is the kind of guy that whatever his role is going to be, and I expect it to be a significant one. Like I said, I'd be surprised if he doesn't average at least 15 to 18 minutes per game. So we'll see what happens. But, this is a kid that wants to come in and compete for minutes is what it sounds like.
That gets me even more excited if that is an accurate interview, because that, like him saying that you could hear Matt Painter coming in and saying, this is what's going to be, that is like you said, a perfect Matt Painter response of, look, you're going to have to come in and compete, with Cannon Catchings being example number one when he comes in and asks for guaranteed minutes. We're not going to do that. So I really do think that this hopefully gets me even more excited about Mayer. Not that I wasn't already. I mean, you posted on X about the people hitting the button to refresh season ticket. That's me on the portal. Like I've been doing that, and I get all this information. I'm like, oh, this is even more exciting about what's coming up next year. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, I said it, and I don't even think it's I don't even know if it's hyperbole. I understand the excitement that going into the 2023-24 season, but it feels like that there is more excitement because it felt like to me, the 2023-24 team, it was like, okay, we know this team can get to the Final Four.
Right.
And that this team feels like it feels like they can win a national championship. And I think people thought the 23-24 team with Edey, Braden, Fletch, Lance Jones, I think Mason, people thought they could win a national championship, but I think that the primary goal was like, get to the Final Four. Let's just get to now it's like, we've been to the Final Four. I think this team can win a national championship. So that's why I say, I think this is going to be the most anticipated season that I remember. There might've been maybe with Glenn Robinson and Konzo Martin and some of those. Grant, I don't know if you were old enough to,
I don't think he wasn't alive at that point. Dustin.
Yeah. See, so there might've been maybe more excitement and hype back then, but I certainly don't remember this type of buzz, especially at this point in the season.
Glenn Robinson is my most all-time favorite Boilermaker. So because I was growing up at the time that he was coming through, but there was talk about them being good, but there was still 4 of the Fab 5 there that at Michigan, they weren't even like hyped to be the Big Ten champion that year.
Sure.
And the way they performed, it was a fantastic season. And, short of a Glenn Robinson hurt back, they probably do beat Duke and go to the Final Four that year. But it didn't happen. But this team is absolutely, like I told you, or I mentioned on X to one of your other posts, it took me about 13 seconds to start getting hyped for this next season because of what roster spots. I didn't anticipate Braden, TKR, or Lawyer going away. I didn't anticipate either of those. And those are 3 really darn good pieces to be have as your cornerstone for a basketball team. It was just, I'm so excited comparatively to even the 23-24. That was the revenge tour. We got beat by 16 seed. We're coming back. We're going to prove that we're a better team than that. Yeah, we wanted to the national championship, but you're absolutely right. Final Four was the goal there. And it's absolutely exciting when it comes to next year. But there's still one more piece that we haven't talked about, and that's the sharpshooter. 42.3% from 3. Liam Murphy from North Florida transfers and commits to Purdue. Dustin, I haven't even seen a highlight reel of him, but the fact that he was the conference leader in 3-point percentage last year in his conference, Purdue got another good one.
Yeah, they did. And this is a guy, I think when you talk about role players, I'm going to guess that Matt Painter was very honest and open about this as well. And You can come in and like, I'm not, and these are never negative conversations, right? Like,
right.
Yeah, we're going to give you the tools to compete for a starting job, but probably what we're going to need you to do is come off the bench and give us, to me, this kid is Camden Heide. Like, I think his ability to stretch the floor, again, a lot of these, the one problem I see in this stuff, guys, when I'm going through like these highlight films, it's always offense. I never see any defense. So I don't know if this guy is very good on that end of the floor, but a lot of his, he can come off ball screens, a lot of pop-up shots, a spot-up three-point shooter, a guy who was able to get into his proper lane on transition and get some knockdown threes that way. And so I think this is a guy who can help you in that small ball lineup. He could probably play some 4. He can probably also come in and play the 3, but I think he's going to create some space for TKR and just give them another weapon. Like, that was the thing about that. Again, I'll go back to the 23-24 team, was like, you surrounded Edey with so many 3-point shooters. Yeah. And Purdue was certainly a 3-point shooting team last year, one of the best in the country. And so now you add another piece to that where it's going to be like, basically, to me, you're going to have probably 2 to 3 3-point shooters on the floor at all times, like guys who are capable of knocking it down. And I think last year, Miles Colvin and Cam Heide struggled, and they had some issues with confidence at times. But you saw how, like, Heidi's ability to knock down the triple was huge in that game against Houston. I know they didn't win the game, but he pulled him back into that game and hit the tying 3. And Miles Colvin at one point in the tournament hit some big shots too. So, like, I just think that they know what they have on the interior, and that's what I'm really excited about, is that front court and how they're going to use those pieces in a rotation. They have the pieces in the front court. Matt Painter likes it. He's like, all right, I'm going to just surround all these guys with shooting. I've got a really good wing. I've got the best point guard in the country. Fletch has proven himself. He's one of the best point shooters in the country. You got Mayer coming in. This is just another piece to that. So if this guy can give you 12 to 15 minutes, and if he can give you like 7 points a game, that's a huge win. Yeah.
Well, and we don't even think about, well, we do, but it's not mentioned often. Love the Donald Duck.
You like that?
Love that. I have a nephew that I always kid around with that I'm like, you know who Donald Duck is, right? Why doesn't he wear pants? Like, I always bring up the no pants. But anyways, I forgot what I was talking about. Donald Duck.
Well, I appreciate to distract, or I apologize for distracting you.
Don't apologize, not at all. Let's move to the fact that Purdue still has a roster spot or a scholarship, at least one that we know of that they could give out. This roster is so stacked. I don't know that Matt Painter goes after somebody else that can make a huge impact this year. Are we pretty much done?
This is what it's been pretty much. This is how it sounds. It sounds like they're probably done. Now, that doesn't mean there's been some communication with some guys. There was a guy, and now I'm going to forget his name. Gosh darn it. Oh, it's Cade Tyson out of North Carolina. I remember that because somebody said referencing your Oscar Mayer reference. It was Oscar Mayer, Tyson. Just call us Arby's because we have the meats, right? So there have been some other guys that have some experience that aren't high volume. So I could see maybe if you want to add another piece and say, hey, if you want to be part of this team that we're building, and you can maybe, you might play 10 minutes one game, you may not play for 3 straight games. Or as we talked before we started recording, like, is there a guy out there that we want to add that we think maybe not going to help us in a huge way this season,
right? But
maybe in 26, 27 and beyond. I don't think that's out of the question, but I think in terms of like assembling contributors for this year's roster, I think Purdue feels pretty good about where it's at, because I remember too, they're bringing in Antoine West, who was
you just reminded me of what I was saying, by the way. Go ahead.
Okay. Which is a kid that Matt Painter compared, no pressure at all, right, to like Carson Edwards. And that doesn't mean that this guy's going to be able to light it up for 40, but in terms of his ability to play, make, and knock down shots, So there's there's going to be a lot of competition this summer, and it's going to make this team really. I'm interested to see how the red shirts play out. There's a lot of different factors to this that makes it really intriguing. But in terms of assembling a team for this year, I think they're probably done. Do they add one more guy, whether that's a late, recruiting edition or a late portal edition, to maybe look at, can we get this guy on the floor a few games? Maybe, but we're really looking for him to help us in the future.
What I was saying earlier was, some people forget that Daniel Jacobson's on the roster. He's coming back next year, and that's a rim presence right there. Even if he doesn't average much point wise, he gives that rim presence that might deter the defense or the offense, opposing offenses from getting those backdoor cuts and getting to the rim so easily.
And his return makes me wonder. Now, I don't know. I don't have any inside information on this. This is just me speculating because I don't know. Does that potentially give Raleigh Burgess the thought of maybe I'm going to redshirt this season? Now, I know that kid wants to play. He's a good player. Didn't quite have the stamina to go, and then he dealt with some injury late in the season. He just came off surgery. But if you think about it, like, they've got Jacobson, Trey Kaufman-Renn, and Oscar Clough. So obviously Jacobson and Clough can play the 5. You're going to put Trey Kaufman-Renn at the 4. You could play Jacobson and Kaufman-Renn together. You could play Clough and Kaufman-Renn together. You could play Kaufman-Renn and go back to that small ball lineup where maybe it looks like you bring in Liam Murphy off the bench, maybe Omer Myers up, coming in with Fletch and Braden. There's a lot of different lineups out there, and I don't know. It's just going to be that front court battle is going to be really intriguing to me, because I think Burgess is pretty much set in that 4 spot. But the fact that you can kind of maneuver those guys, I don't know, man. It's going to be, I think that there's the kind of skill set where you could probably play Jacobson and Clough together if you're trying to give Kaufman-Renn a blow, and you don't necessarily have to bring in a traditional power forward like Raleigh is. So that's going to be really intriguing to me. But.
And don't forget, we've got Jack Benter too.
Yeah, golly. I mean, these guys.
They got 12 players.
Yeah, right now they've got 12 players that could be rotating through. And my goodness, that good of a team with that big of a rotation. Now, in the grand scheme of a season, you may have some things not pan out exactly the way you expect. But still, even if 2 of those don't happen, you've still got a rotation of 10 with a really, really good roster on top of it.
Yeah. I mean, this is as good of a roster as I can remember. Like, I think even the baby Boilers, if you remember, but they had Chris Kramer, Keaton Grant, Robbie, Etuan, Lewis Jackson, Jawan, but I think they were pretty much 8 deep.
Yeah.
So and this team is legitimately, now we haven't seen Jack Benner, but I think he's a pretty solid player for them. We haven't seen Antoine West. I think he's going to be a solid player. The fact that you have the ability to potentially go 12 deep if you wanted to, it's just and this is the crazy thing. Everybody would have said, we don't want Miles Colvin to go. We don't want Camden Heide to go. But it's where were they going to find minutes? So yep. It's a wild situation. I don't remember an assembly of a roster this skilled, at least on paper. Now we'll see what it looks like on the floor. And again, there were times early in this season where you got to remember you're adding some pieces. You're adding Clough, you're adding Meyer, you're adding Murphy, you're adding West into the mix. So as much returning talent as they have, there still might be some pieces where it doesn't quite sync up. So if it doesn't always look like a national championship contender, they're probably still going to fight through some chemistry things. But I think there's still a ton of reason to be excited about this squad.
39-0.
Yeah. Do you know what's crazy is somebody asked the other day, we were doing our own podcast for Purdue on SI, and was would 26, I can't remember the number, would 26 or 27 wins be considered a disappointing season? And I was I had to do math on that. And I'm you usually play 31 games in the regular season. I'm yeah, so 27-4 is probably pretty good. But I was thinking in terms of if you add the Big Ten tournament, and I'm Yeah, I think that would be a disappointing season to only increase your win total by 3. So I had to recalibrate and do some math. And we're like, if it's regular season 27-4, I think any Purdue fan is going to take that.
Sign me up.
Yeah.
Great. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, obviously a lot to love, but I've heard a lot of like some Purdue fans when they talk about, or even the people that cover Purdue, when they talk about like this roster, the only thing that they have to say about potentially a weakness is athleticism in the backcourt. So I guess, do you think that the lack of like size and athleticism in like the spots 1 through 3 could be something that Purdue notices, or are they just too skilled that it's not going to matter?
I think you'll probably notice that on the defensive end more than the offensive end, because there are ways you can kind of counter that. Like Purdue's offense is so intricate and they run so many different sets and they're so good at running their sets that I don't think that their athleticism matters. And the other thing that really killed this, I don't think they're going to have anybody who's able to go up and catch the alley-oops like Heidi and Colvin. I agree. I don't think they have that. But one of the biggest downfalls for those two guys was they really couldn't beat anybody off the dribble. Now, if that's something Omer Mayer can bring to you offensively, then good luck trying to defend this team at all. Yeah. Right. And I think, and excuse me, I also think like Jakari Harris is a guy, to me, he has that quality. I think he's going to be a guy who can beat you off the dribble. So I think if they don't have that, even if they don't have that specific ability, I think their ball movement is so good and their understanding of the offense is so good. And they've got such a tremendous post player in Trey Kaufman-Wren who can hit those spray outs and is such a good has evolved to be such a good passer. I don't think you're going to notice it on the offensive end, but if they get into situations where they have to play and defend really athletic guys, then I think you will see it on that end. But again, the other aspect of that too is, and this is again another reason why I'm interested to see who starts, who gets more minutes, Daniel Jacobson or Oscar Clough at the 5. What's Purdue going to value? Are they going to value defense? Like, hey, we don't have that athleticism, and if guys get beat, we need that rim protection in there. Because I don't think Oscar Clough is the same defensively as much as he brings offensively, right? So I think that Daniel Jacobson, this was a kid who played one game, had 3 blocks, and I know it was against Texas A&M Corpus Christi, but that was his first college game.
Yep.
And he looks a little bit thicker now too. He's added some weight to that 7'4" frame. So yeah, so I think that like to me, I don't know that that's going to be a huge problem. Now, again, if Daniel Jacobson gets in trouble, you could see the same situation that you saw this year where they don't really have any rim protection. The one positive is that Oscar Clough is a really good rebounder. So they'll at least be able to clean up the glass. But I think the fact that you have Jacobson in there who can kind of erase some of those shortcomings or those issues where you get beat, I think that kind of counters Purdue's lack of athleticism on the wing or at the guard spots.
Did you, and this is my final thing for you, Dustin, did you see what USA Today, where they had Purdue ranked? And this is before Mayer and Murphy, but did you see where they had them ranked?
And USA Today.
Yeah, they did their way too early rankings as well.
Okay. I know
11.
that. Oh,
11. Okay. They had the likes of UCLA, which is going to be a good team, high, like at number 5, wasn't it, Grant? 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And they had Michigan at like number 8, and then Purdue at 11.
Oof. They had to have assumed that somebody was leaving. Trey Kaufman-Wren or Braden Smith.
Their biggest concerns were Braden Smith and TKR going to the NBA.
Yeah, I don't think that was ever a concern for TKR. And that's not like he's still a really good player, but there was never any buzz to that.
The only thing I thought is what he would do, I figured he and Braden Smith would do what Zach Edey did and go to the NBA, get their evaluation, come back. That's what I thought would happen.
And I don't know I don't have it off the top of my head. I don't know what the deadline is. I don't think it's passed yet. So there's a chance that TKR could still, but I've not seen him in any draft. Like he's not been in any draft buzz. I can't imagine he's going to get a grade where it's beneficial for him to leave Purdue before his senior season would be my guess.
Yeah. Well, it caught me so off guard. I was looking at it, clickbait to see where they had him. And I'm like, oh, okay. They don't have him in the top 3, but where are the 5, 8, 10. They had him at 11. It just blew my mind as to whoever was writing that. I don't know what they had in their coffee cup, but juice.
Yeah, well, they were inconsistent because there were guys on other teams higher than Purdue that would have had a much better draft stock than TKR or even Braden Smith, and they were like, "Oh, they're probably going to come back." And then,
with Houston, they're ranked number 1, and they didn't even mention Uzan potentially going to the draft. And the next day, he declared for the draft. Now he might come back as well, but still.
I think the biggest issue with a lot of this stuff is like because Purdue's not I don't even want to say traditional power. I think they're a traditional power. Like, I know they don't have the national championship and they don't have the same number of Final Fours, but there is this narrative that Purdue just doesn't have money, and that could not be further from the truth. Like, they are in good shape. Trust me on that. Like,
they just don't go breaking the bank for certain players or all their players. That's what their problem.
Correct.
What people's problem is with them.
I think a lot of people thought that the fact that they didn't go portaling last season was like, oh, they don't have the money to do that. And that wasn't like Matt Painter's not going to just bring in a guy just to bring in a guy. Like, they've got to fit, as I think Craig Bowers on the Boilers in the Stands podcast brought up. Like, I think, he sent out a good tweet. Like, these are still Matt Painter's guys. These are still graduate transfers. Like, those are the guys he brings in. He doesn't bring in a guy, again, not to bring up, but he's not going to bring in a guy like AJ Storr, usually, right? Like, he's going to bring in an experience, somebody who's proven themselves, somebody that's probably got their degree. So he really liked that class that he had coming back. And it was, at one time, it was a 6-man class. He can't help that Cannon Catchings, they had to split ways late on that. So I don't know. I think that if you've seen anything from this offseason, it's like the narrative that Purdue is broke can be kind of squashed at this point.
Well, and Purdue literally is a Daniel Jacobson injury. If that doesn't happen, they probably are a higher seed. They might have won the Big Ten, and I don't think I'm overstating that with the value of Jacobson, because that's where the deficiency was for Purdue, was at the rim. And if he's there, maybe he dissuades enough that they win 3 to 4 more games. They don't have a 4-game losing streak. They turn out to be a 2 seed in the tournament, potentially, because that's where they were when they were playing at their best. You throw Jacobs into that, maybe they're a 2 seed. Maybe they do make a second straight Final Four. Like, they didn't need a portal move last year, and I think Matt Painter knew that.
Yeah, well, you think about, like, just go back to – there are 2 games in particular that stand out to me, and I'm not saying Purdue would have won either one, but if you look at the Wisconsin game when they made, like, 19 of 20 shots from inside the painted area, and then the other game was the Michigan State game where they were getting dunk after dunk after dunk. If you're just able to alter – like, Purdue was shooting lights – not in the Michigan State game. They were shooting lights out in that Wisconsin game. Like, their offense was on fire. If you get 3 to 4 stops in that game, Purdue wins. Mm-hmm. Same in that Michigan State game. I don't remember what the final score ended up being, but you get 3 to 4 stops and you're going to give yourself a chance on that, final few possessions of the game. And 2 wins, like, just 1 win would have been the difference between the 6th seed, which they got in the Big Ten tournament, and the 2 seed for the Big Ten tournament. We're talking about they're playing on Friday, and completely different situation. They may get a higher seed in the NCAA tournament, and maybe they get to the Elite Eight of the Final Four. I don't know, but that was, like, again, Texas A&M Corpus Christi. But to me, Daniel Jacobson, 13 points, 7 rebounds, 3 blocks in his very first college game. And if you remember, like, Texas A&M Corpus Christi made a run, and I think he had 6 points. If it wasn't consecutive, it was like 6 out of 8 or something like that. Mm-hmm. So having him back, like, I think that's going to be a dude that's on a mission to prove he belongs. And like I said, he's gotten a lot stronger too. You can just see, like, it's hard to build out muscle on a 7'4" frame, but he looks thicker and looks like he's ready for a full college basketball season.
Well, I'm ready for him to have a full college basketball season too, because I think that will translate into some better wins. That Wisconsin game, you score 84 points and get beat by 10. Like, that tells you what Wisconsin was doing that day. Mm-hmm. And the fact that, like you said, 19 of 20 at one point, 19 of 20 from inside the paint. that can't happen, and I think Daniel Jacobson, like you said, doesn't necessarily change the outcome of a lot of games, but there are probably a couple 3 games that would be different potentially, and that means a whole difference in the Big Ten tournament and a whole difference in the NCAA.
Yep. Yeah. There's a couple of games that, like, just thinking about it, come back to mind. So there's a lot of reasons to be excited. Not just, I think this team could have been a Final Four contender even if you returned everybody from last season, right? Like, I think Daniel Jacobson being out was that much of a blow to this team. But when you see him returning in the pieces you brought in, like, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch this team.
Athletic 7-footers, the Matt Painter's forte, and you know what? If it ain't broke, you don't need to fix it. You know, so people complain about his big game coaching management, and I actually had this conversation yesterday. I said, you know what? I said, at some point you've got to say it's just, you know, it's the players that don't execute. And I'm not putting the blame on players. I'm just saying sometimes they don't execute the way that it's intended. We don't know what's going on in those huddles. We don't know what adjustments are being done. The fact that they're getting beat by all these double-digit seeds is because they've had a season good enough to get there. And that's what I hold in higher regard, is a better regular season. I want a long run in the NCAA, but if we've got a good, successful regular season, there's disappointment in how it ends, but I'm still happy with the season. Yep. Go ahead. You got anything else, Grant?
I mean, nothing crazy. Just wrapping it up. But, yeah, it's going to be fun. I think the other thing to remember, too, is Daniel Jacobson's going to be fighting for minutes just like everybody else.
Yeah.
So, like, when you talk about his competitiveness, his desire to prove himself, like, he's not just doing that because he got injured last year. He's doing that because he's got to try and compete with Oscar Clough and make sure that he gets his minutes just like Clough will get his. So I think Jacobson, too, he gives Purdue a ceiling that is a lot higher because he will, like we've talked about, just kind of fix the supplements of the athleticism issue. And he's also going to be able to spread the floor, which allows him to play multiple positions with multiple different lineups. Like, I think that's part of the reason why this excites me more, is because Purdue's so versatile. Like, you could put 5 shooters on the floor if you played Liam Murphy and Daniel Jacobson. Like, everybody be able to shoot the basketball. So they just can do pretty much whatever they want with this lineup. And Painter is going to have a lot of fun. Like, thinking about Painter being the general of this, like, you can't be more excited or bought into any other team in the country because of who's coaching and the personnel that Purdue has. So it's going to be quite a season next year, as long as everyone stays healthy and everyone does what we think they're going to do.
I fully anticipate another Kuzi finalist. I anticipate a Karl Malone finalist this coming year, because now TKR has a position that he's steadfast in. You know, he's not going to be the 5; he's going to be the 4. So that's and I anticipate a couple of. Not necessarily maybe the top finalists, but some two semifinalists, and one finalist in the Naismith, Player of the Year award talk. And I anticipate a lot of great things happening with this Boilermaker team. If not everything's going to pan out exactly the way they want, but I think enough's going to pan out that this is going to be one heck of a season. Yeah.
And I got to just say this one story real quick, because Grant brought up Daniel Jacobson's range. So it was at some point later in the season when Daniel was healthy enough to start, going through warm-ups and shooting again. And I saw him on the court. He was out there all by himself. I always got to the games, an hour and a half, 2 hours before, because I'm a lunatic, and saw him out there shooting. So I took some photos of him, and he was shooting threes, and he was knocking some of them down. And I just put the tag on there, basically Daniel Jacobson working on that 3-point shot. And you could see in the picture his toe was on the line as he was shooting this 3. So his dad reached out to me and said, "Hey, Dustin, go tell him to take a step back from the 3-point line. Like, make sure that toe's not on the line. If he's going to shoot him from that far, make sure it's worth 3, not 2. Make sure it's worth 3 instead of 2. Exactly."
Oh, that's great. Well, Dustin Schutte from Sports Illustrated. Thanks a lot for coming in and talking about the new ads and the retention of the roster and just the overall excitement of what this next basketball season potentially has and is being for all of us anticipating for. Now I'm ready for November. Like, I'm ready for it to start now. And we still have another 6 months. Oh, gosh, what can I do during that time?
Yeah.
I mean, college football, but it's to me this is life. Basketball is the best overall sport in college for me. So
I do feel bad for Barry Odom a little bit. Like, he's just going to be overshadowed. Maybe that will be a good thing. I don't know what the outlook is for the football team this season. So
I was going to say maybe it'll be a good thing for Barry Odom, because then he doesn't have to worry about stumbling every once in a while, because they have an extremely hard schedule this coming year, and it's definitely a year for a first year coach to try to turn things around for him. But thanks so much, Grant. Great Friday edition of Boilermaker Lounge. Hopefully we can talk some more Monday about the new ads and kind of break down how we hope. And Dustin just talked about their positions and what they could do. But we'll have some other stuff to talk about, I'm sure. And by the way, Dustin, before we leave, and I know we're extremely well over what we normally go, but of the teams, the historical teams, at least 10 years further back or more, which one is your favorite? Like, which one would you? We're doing some reliving and profiling of the great Boilermaker teams.
Yeah. So which one was my favorite to watch?
Or sure, or which one is like, yeah, that's a season that I'd like to relive and hear about and talk about. Right now we have the 68, 69, 93, 94, 88, 89, and the 79, 80, and then the 09, 10, 2009 and 10.
Yeah, 09, 10 would have been the year Robbie got hurt, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good one. You know what? The 18-19 season was really, that run in March was, I remember watching, even
10
though
years away, Dustin.
Oh,
10 years out. That's the
feels
caveat.
Like 10 years ago. That is the caveat.
No kidding. Next couple years, it'll be 10 years out, so we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Because it was a special season.
That's a great question. 9-10 is what pops up into my head. The other one, and I wish I could remember the year on this. Was it 01-02 when they got to the Elite Eight and got beat by Wisconsin?
2000. That was the
That was 2000?
2000. Yep. Brian Cardinal's last season, and they got beaten by Wisconsin to go to the Final Four.
And I don't remember a ton about that season, but I feel like that was one of those where not a lot of people thought they would make a deep run. I don't even remember their seeding.
They were 6 seed that year.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what I thought.
Because it was a 6 and an 8 seed playing in the Elite Eight to go to the Final Four.
Yeah, I remember that postseason run much better than I remember the regular season. But those, I think 09, 10, and then 99, 2000 would have been my two answers to that.
Yeah, that's a good one. I added that to my list because that was Gene Katie's last really good chance to make it to the Final Four, and Wisconsin just was in the way. And then they went on to lose to Michigan State in a really, really extremely low-scoring Final Four game. All right, well, that brings us to the end. Thanks so much for joining us for this Friday edition of the Boilermaker Lounge. We will see you on Monday.